Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name's Christina. If you haven't been here before, if you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. It's good to see you guys. I know it's been a while, but that kind of ties into this video. It's a heavier topic today, but I think it's an important one, and if I can help anyone with this subject, I hope to do that. So I'm going to talk about my struggles with anxiety and OCD today. I had a video up before at some point, but I took it down because of the anxiety, and it makes me second guess everything. So that's been a struggle with my YouTube channel and making videos consistently. So that's something I'm vowing to get better about. I've also let my anxiety keep me from my dream, and I'm working on that this year as well. So later on, I'll release more about that. But I'm really starting to take ownership and fight back, and that's why I'm putting this video out there. It's hard for me to do, but it's something that I think could help other people, and especially if you feel like you have to struggle through it alone. You don't, and there are resources, and if I could even be a resource for you, please feel free to message me, and I will help in any way that I can. So, okay, I have severe OCD and anxiety. So, I'll talk a little bit about childhood and when it onset for me. So, when I was a kid, I had fears about something happening to my mom. I remember having severe attachment issues. When she would drop me off, I would get to that point of sobbing or hysterical, where you would go as a kid, and so that would happen every single day. Like, it never got easier for me. So and I always had worries about something happening to my mom, and I still to this day do, and I still check on her, like, more than she even checks in. I check on her because I need to make sure she's good and taking care of herself and whatever. So it's kind of role reversal, because I kind of take the parental role. And I worry about my family a lot like that. Something happening to my family. Like, as long as everything is good with my family, then everything's okay with me and I can get through things. But if something were to happen to somebody, like, that would be the end for me. Like, I can't see a way through that. So, those are worries that I have all the time. So I kind of went through the rest of my childhood without many symptoms. And then at 19, I remember being on a mission trip, and I all of a sudden was talking to this kid, and I remember thinking, if I don't hear every single word of the sentence he's saying, like, something bad is going to happen. I have to hear everything that he says for some reason, and I thought it was an odd thought, and I didn't know why I was thinking that. And it's weird because that's not how my OCD or anxiety presents today, but this is how it started out. So I just went on, and my symptoms of anxiety just kept getting worse. So eventually I got married, and then we were in Chicago, and I went to a psychiatrist. And at that point, I started medication. For me, I'll go into what anxiety looks like for me. So for me, anxiety is, my OCD is fear of contamination. So for me, I think that everything in the world is dirty, and something is going to get from wherever point A is to me, and that I'm going to spread it, and everything is going to be contaminated eventually. So if you think about it right now with this pandemic, I don't mean to downplay anything or the realness of it, but just to give you a comparison thought. So the way people are reacting to this pandemic is wiping everything down, being extra precautious and extra clean about everything, and like changing their clothes when they get home or showering when they get home, wiping everything down with Lysol wipes and hand sanitizer, and not touching your face and things like that. These kind of thoughts are things that I have going on all the time. Like, it doesn't stop for me. It's not pandemic thinking for me. It's an everyday thought. Like, if I go out to the store, I'm constantly thinking and washing my hands, and I carry around wipes, and I wipe everything down, and I wipe down my hands, and I wipe down surfaces. And it's really hard because I have children, and children are just gross. They just are. And they're going to get everything, and they're going to be crawling on the floor. The floor is a big deal for me. I feel like if something hits the floor, it's dirty and needs to be washed. But when you have kids, they're going to be crawling all over the floor and playing on the floor. And that's just something that I have to deal with. So that's something that ramps up my anxiety, but I have to sit there with. And that's called exposure therapy. And that's something that has really worked for me. It takes a lot to go into it. It takes a lot of work. It's exhausting. But exposure therapy is sitting with the fear and the anxiety of whatever causes that. So for me, if it was something on the floor, sitting there, and if my anxiety is at a 10, being high, I sit there until it ramps down to like a 5 or a 2. And then I get more comfortable with being uncomfortable, is basically the thought process. So as you can imagine, it's exhausting. But it is one form of therapy, and it is something that has helped me. Cognitive behavioral therapy has not helped me as much. That's basically retraining your thought patterns. I have not had as much success with that. And mindfulness, like just being present where you are and thinking of the sights and sounds and being present in the moment, that also doesn't work as well for me. But for some people it does, and these are practices that you can look into and maybe have success with yourself. So that's one way that my anxiety presents and my OCD presents. Another way is social anxiety now. When I was younger, I didn't have this. I would be putting myself out there, and a lot of people would think that I had no issues with self-esteem or self-confidence at all, because I would put myself out there. I would be like the party, like the life of the party type person, and have no issues, it would seem, socially. But in reality, and especially now, the older I've gotten, the worse it's gotten, and my self-esteem has gone down immensely with my anxiety. And so, for example, like on social media, if I reach out to someone and they don't get back to me, I think, what did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? Am I bothering them? Do they not like me? And this sounds stupid to admit because it sounds juvenile, but honestly, these are my thought patterns. And normally somebody could be like, you know what, if somebody doesn't like me, oh well, just move on from it. And I don't have that mechanism. It'll just keep replaying in my head, and it'll ruin a whole day. And I'll have to talk to my husband about it and be like, hey, this happened, what's your opinion? Do you think I did something wrong? You know, just over analyzing everything. If I leave a conversation, I'll be like, did I offend them? Did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? With my YouTube channel, it's been an issue because I want everything to look perfect and be perfect, and that's just not reality. It's never going to be like that. With my, I just had my second son, and I gained 100 pounds because I had severe preeclampsia. And I'm like, well, I don't want to get on and record because I've gained all this weight, and people are going to think, oh, she's gained all this weight and she doesn't look like she used to. And maybe they're not going to like my videos, and they're not going to like the way I look. And it's just like always obsessively in your head. And that's the thing, is people throw this word, I'm obsessed, around. And if you've ever had true obsessions and obsessive thoughts, they're intrusive, and it's not a good thing. Obsessive is not a good word to throw around, and I don't use it to say I'm obsessed with something, because if you've ever had it, you know how intrusive and how invasive it is to your life, and it's not something that is to be taken lightly. So that's another thing, is a lot of people have is intrusive thoughts. That's thoughts that you can't control or don't want and aren't welcoming into your head. Like, I don't watch the news, for example, because if I watch the news, I'm going to have thoughts about it that I can't get rid of. I'm not going to be able to sleep that night because I'm going to be up thinking about all of the horrible stuff that I saw in the news and how people are going through horrible things and I can't help them. Especially with like animals, for me, like I can't see animals suffering. So like the images of, I used to follow certain Instagram accounts and stuff of rescues, and I can't do that because the images I can't get out of my head and it'll stay with me. So things like that people can generally just get over or forget about, or, you know, they're not happy about it, but they can also move on from it. I don't have that same capability. It sticks with me. And that's been another thing for me is sleep. I take medicine because I can't sleep, and my thoughts just go nonstop. It's like my mind is always racing. My mind is always going 1,000 times. Like, if someone could sit there and just have no thoughts in their head, I can't do that. I'm always like on to the next 20 steps ahead, thinking or worrying. And worry is a huge thing. Like, I've always thought, I'm a Christian, I can't control this. Why can't I just rely on God and leave it at his feet and not worry about it? But that's not me. It's the anxiety. Like, I can't control the anxiety. It basically is going to be there whether or not I want it to be, and I can't do anything about that. It's how my brain is set up, and that's something I want to drive home in this video is please do not feel bad about anxiety, depression, any mental illness, and it's not even a great term, mental illness, any mental health issues that you have. If you had something wrong with your heart, you would not feel bad to go seek treatment for it. Same way you should not feel bad to seek treatment for mental health. It is the way that your brain chemistry and your biochemistry is developed. It's how your genes in your genetic makeup is put together. Like, a lot of this is genetic. Like, anxiety runs in my family, in the women on my family, and I didn't even know it until I had it. And then they started saying, oh yeah, I struggle with that too. And it's something that's not talked about enough, even within our own families. But like, for me, what it comes down to is I don't create serotonin, and I've taken genetic testing, and I also don't intake serotonin very well. And serotonin is the neurotransmitter that is for happiness and well-being. And that's what my anxiety attacks, is happiness and well-being. I'm always sitting there thinking, oh, there's something wrong, and worrying, oh, is there something wrong with me, or did they not like me? And something about me is I'm a person who always tries to help everybody that I can. Like, if I can help you and it's within my power to, I'm going to do that. And there are people out there who are not like that. And since I can't relate to that, I take it very personally. I'm like, oh, well, what is the problem with, you know, maybe they didn't like me. Maybe I said something wrong, did something wrong, back to that way of thinking. But there are just some people who are not out there to help other people, and that's not their goal, and that's not their mentality, and I just have to accept that, you know? And just like there are going to be people who don't like me, and that's just something I have to accept, but it's really hard for me to do. So anyways, I got on medication, then got off medication before my first pregnancy and thought that I had to do it on my own. And went through that whole pregnancy with severe anxiety, and then had my son, had the postpartum, and then found a psychiatrist in Colorado, which is where we are now, and got on medication. Then I ended up getting pregnant with my second son, and we kind of were trying, kind of weren't, but it wasn't something I had prepared for ahead of time medication-wise. So we had a discussion, and I was like, I should probably go off of my medication because I thought that I had to do that, and it would make me weak or less of a mom if I was on medication. And my therapist, well, my psychiatrist, I should say, to differentiate, she was like, I think that you should stay on it. I think that it's better for you and your stress level and the baby for you to stay on it, and it's perfectly safe. And my son is perfectly healthy. Everything is fine. Nothing happened developmentally. So I just want this to be kind of a PSA for moms. If you feel like less than because you're having any kind of mental health issues and you're scared to get on medication or scared to reach out and get help, please don't be. Please don't struggle and suffer in silence, because you don't have to. And this is not something that you need to be stronger than. This is something that's in your genetic makeup that you don't have control over. So please don't feel bad for it, and don't feel bad for reaching out and getting help and being on medicine. Sometimes it's the best thing you can do for yourself and your baby. If you're not healthy and you can't take care of yourself and be stable for yourself, you can't take care of your children and be stable for them and give them the best environment. So it's just, it feels like common sense, but it's something that people get so in their head about and feel bad about. And I just want to release you from that stigma and release you from feeling like you have to suffer in silence about it, because please don't ever feel like you have to do that. There are resources, there are people out there to help you, and there are medications out there to help you as well. So I got through my second pregnancy, and well, in November, we lost my aunt suddenly in a car crash. And my aunt was like my best friend. That's the first time I feel like I'm saying it out loud. It doesn't even seem real yet. But I had to go home for that, and I was super pregnant. I was like 33 weeks pregnant, and I was very swollen. And like I said, I put on a lot of weight during this pregnancy, and I didn't know how sick I was. So I went out there for the funeral, and then we came back here, and I had a doctor's appointment, and I ended up going to the ER and having my son at 34 weeks because I had severe preeclampsia. So 1 week after losing my aunt, I had my son early, and he had to be in the NICU for 2 weeks. So then we brought him home, and he's fine. He's doing great. We had to bring him home on oxygen, though. Now he's off, and he's completely healthy. But we had to bring him home on oxygen, and then on Christmas Eve, we lost my grandmother. And I couldn't go home for the funeral even because my son was on oxygen and we couldn't travel. And all this time, I'm away from my mom, and I'm an only child, and my mom and I are like, she's like my soulmate. Like, we are each other's rock, and you know, I couldn't even be there for her, and I couldn't be there for my grandmother's funeral. So it was very, very difficult. And then I feel like I started having some postpartum all at the same time of all of this happening. So I got into a pretty bad state of like depression where it was just hard to get up and even go on to the next day. Every single day felt like I just can't do one more day. And that is a scary feeling. And I've never been suicidal. I've never had any of that with postpartum or anything. But just the feeling of feeling like I can't go on to make it to another day is pretty terrifying. So I've been open and honest with my psychiatrist about that. And we've done some changes with medication and things like that. And we're still working on it. So let me check my list real quick because I have everything that I wanted to cover on here. Whoa. Sorry, I have like the most makeshift setup for filming right now. So one thing I would say is I would suggest having a psychiatrist because a psychiatrist can do medication and talk therapy. You need to ask the psychiatrist if they're willing to do talk therapy because some psychiatrists strictly stick to medicine and prescriptions only. A psychologist is a talk therapist that does not prescribe medication. So you can have two separate ones. You could have a psychiatrist for medication and a psychologist for talking. But if you could get them both in one, I feel like it's an easier route and it's less tedious than having two separate doctors. So that would be my suggestion. Also, reach out, like, if you can't get in somewhere, sometimes people aren't taking new patients. Reach out to them and explain to the receptionist even what's going on and ask if they have any suggestions of any other facilities, any other practitioners in the area to get into. Because like I said, it took me like 6 months, and it was at a point of postpartum when I was feeling so sad. I told my husband, I don't think I'll ever feel happy again. Like, that level of sadness is overwhelming. Like, it completely takes you down. So it's a scary thing. So to not be able to get into the doctor, luckily I told one of the receptionists this situation and that I wasn't able to get in anywhere. And she actually got me a spot in. So be upfront and honest with people. And I'm going to leave a resource down below for helping find doctors in your local area, and a couple resources for how to help people or help yourself with anxiety and OCD, but also depression. And like I said, if there's anything you could take away from this video, please just know that you're not alone. You're not the only one who has this, and it's not your fault. It's not something that you choose, and you don't have to be ashamed of it, and you don't have to suffer in silence. Please reach out to someone and get treatment and get help, and don't ever let it get too far where you're trying to handle it on your own and you're not managing well, because that's a scary situation to be in. So on a lighter note, I will leave what I got ready with in the description box below. Seems like a totally separate subject, which it is. But yeah, these uncertain times is another thing that I struggle with. So this whole pandemic thing. So I hope everyone is doing well. And like, patience is not something that comes easy to me with my anxiety. So we are kind of stuck. We're trying to move back home right now, and we're kind of stuck. But hopefully we'll get that figured out. And now I'm just going off on tangents. But yeah. So another struggle for me is patience, and like, I want more than instant gratification. Like, I want things to happen before I even think of them. Like, having to wait is something with my anxiety that is so bad. Like, the unknowns and that period of unknown is so bad. So this pandemic thing is really scary and really hard for my anxiety. And it just so happens that my psychiatrist took spring break off, so that's been fun too. So I don't have an appointment until next week, but yeah, that's something that we'll probably be discussing, is my anxiety with all of this going on. So I hope that everyone takes care, and I will be praying for all of you, and I hope this video can be of help to you. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.